It was Wednesday morning when I got the letter. As I sat there with my coffee, getting ready for work, everything seemed to stop. Over 10 years had passed since I last heard from my folks. I was all grown up now, barely sparing a thought for my mom and dad. But as I held that letter, fear gripped me, and I had to see what it said. My heart skipped a beat. The twisted duo, my parents, were getting out of prison next week. They'd be back in society, free again. Memories flooded back, memories of the day I made the decision to run away from home. I had it all planned out in my journal, every detail meticulously laid out. Took me a year to perfect my escape plan, but now it was time to confront it. On that Sunday night, with my parents asleep and the household staff chatting away in the kitchen, I grabbed my duffel bag from the closet. I'd had everything I needed for my journey into the unknown. In my mind, I had built it up to be this monumental challenge, but as I stepped out of the door into the suburban streets, it all seemed surprisingly easy. Down the spiral staircase, out into the night, I walked away from the mansion and into the real world. It must have looked odd, a young guy like me wandering alone at that hour, but nobody in that town paid much attention to anything besides their own little bubble. Money talked louder than anything else. As I walked on, the houses grew smaller, the scent of freshly cut lawns fading away. It was late, the houses dull and lifeless. Fear mingled with excitement as I clutched that envelope in my hand, the one that held the key to my new life. You see, a few days after my birthday last year, I overheard my so-called parents talking. They thought they were being secretive, but they unwittingly revealed the truth. They weren't my real parents. And so began my great escape. I spent countless hours snooping around, digging up information whenever my parents were off playing golf or drowning themselves in champagne. Finally, the night I uncovered the truth, a wave of relief washed over me. I'd always felt like an outsider in my seemingly perfect life. I yearned for a different reality, one filled with TV dinners, baseball games after school, and a cozy family home where you didn't need an intercom to ask for a glass of water. My connection with my parents was practically non-existent. I was raised by a rotating cast of underpaid maids. After what felt like an eternity of walking, hopping on and off buses, and enduring countless strange looks, I arrived at the address scribbled on that piece of paper in the envelope. I was ready to meet my real parents. When I knocked on the door, the sound of dogs barking in the backyard made me tense up. The house emanated unfamiliar noises and smells, putting me on edge. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of fumbling with locks, a disheveled woman with unkempt hair opened the door, looking thoroughly irritated. "What do you want?" she snapped. I was speechless for a moment, but managed to stammer out my name and whisper, "I think you're my real mother." Her expression softened briefly before she snapped back, "I don't have any children," and moved to slam the door shut. Uncertain of what to do next, I turned to leave when a scruffy-looking man appeared at the door. He invited me in and led me through a dingy hallway into a cluttered living room. The woman sat on a worn-out couch, her head buried in her hands. As I took a seat, the man fired off questions to confirm my identity. He wanted to know why I was there, questioning me even though he seemed pretty certain of who I was. I poured out my heart, explaining how I'd always felt like an outsider in my own family, how I knew deep down that I didn't belong with my supposed parents. "I just want a normal life with you, my real family," I pleaded. The woman exchanged a glance with the man who claimed to be my biological father. They asked for a moment alone and retreated to another room to confer. When they returned, they gave me an uncertain nod. They agreed to let me stay, but with a condition. I had 3 days to experience life with them, to see if it was what I truly wanted. I couldn't contain my excitement, but their doubt was palpable. It was late, and they insisted it was time for bed. Eagerly, I gathered my belongings, ready to see my new cozy bedroom. But instead, they directed me to a tattered two-person sofa. It dawned on me then that in a normal life, there might not be a surplus of guest rooms to choose from. Still, I was determined to make it work. Perhaps we could discuss the room situation later. Morning came, and hunger gnawed at my stomach. I searched the house for someone to provide breakfast, but found only a note. They were both off to work, leaving bread and butter for me to fend for myself. I was taken aback at the thought of having to make my own food. And even more so by the fact that my supposed parents could leave me alone all day. Was this really a good idea? But I had to give it a shot. So, I grabbed the bread and spread some butter on it. By noon, my biological parents still hadn't returned. and I found myself missing the comfort of my luxurious lifestyle. Maybe life wasn't so bad with mom and dad after all. I often yearned for the simple joys I saw other families experiencing on TV. But here I was, caught in a mess with no clear way out. I knew I had to tough it out and survive these 3 days. Finally, as darkness fell, my biological parents came back. They apologized for being away all day, but explained that it was necessary for survival. They had to earn a living. The woman's demeanor had softened, and she had bought all the ingredients for a hearty meal. She suggested we cook together as a family, and I couldn't contain my excitement. But before we began, they had something important to tell me. They revealed that they had been hesitant to share this information the previous night, fearing I wouldn't believe them. But now, they felt it was time. My birth mother started. I believe I understand why you never felt at home with your supposed parents. You've traveled all this way to escape, and I think you're mature enough to know your history, she continued, revealing a shocking truth. When you were very young, you inherited billions of pounds from me. It was money passed down to me from my father when he passed away, but I put it in your name. However, your supposed mother, who is actually my sister, was envious and bitter. She forged documents to claim the money as her own until you turned 18. This left me with nothing and no proper means to care for you, my daughter. My birth mother went on, explaining how my supposed mother had taken her to court over custody, arguing that I would be better off with her and the money. She won the case, leaving my birth mother devastated. You may not remember being so young at the time, but the money rightfully belongs to you, not your supposed parents, she concluded, her voice heavy with emotion. After the court battles, I was in so much pain that I couldn't bear to see you, and so they chose to stay out of my life. Tears welled in both my biological parents' eyes as they spoke. I was stunned by their words. Then, almost unexpectedly, I found myself suggesting a way to right the wrongs. I think I know where we can find the proof we need, I blurted out. My real mom and dad looked at me with surprise but allowed me to explain. I recounted the night I overheard their conversation in the study, mentioning that I had stumbled upon documents proving they weren't my real parents. If we could obtain those documents, we could reclaim the money and put an end to the madness. That night, we stayed up late, devising a plan. I would return home and apologize for my rash decision to run away. While that created a diversion, my birth parents would use the map I had carefully drawn to sneak into the study, retrieve the documents, and take them to the police without my parents knowing. That was the plan, at least. A sense of dread washed over me as I walked up the familiar driveway, lined with marble statues and fountains. I pushed it aside and knocked on the door. Henry, our butler, greeted me and summoned mother and father, who rushed down the stairs to embrace me. It was showtime. As we settled into the living room to discuss what had transpired, a loud crash echoed from across the hall. Damn it, my supposed parents exclaimed as they dashed into the study. They caught my birth parents red-handed. Anger flared, and they called for Henry and our security guards to escort my parents away. Everything happened so quickly, amid screams and chaos, that I blacked out. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, with my mom and dad by my side. I drifted in and out of the conversation, barely registering the police officer's announcement that my birth parents were missing. My mouth went dry, and I struggled to find my voice. I wanted to scream, to tell them that my parents had been kidnapped, that they were in danger, but the words wouldn't come. I knew then that all hope was lost. As the years passed and I grew older, one thought kept me going. On my 18th birthday, I would legally inherit all the money. With that, I planned to sever ties with the two criminals I was forced to call mom and dad every day. They had destroyed my chance at true family love, and hatred consumed me. I had no clue where my birth parents had been taken or where to even begin looking for them. I feared what my supposed parents were capable of doing for money. They had orchestrated my birth parents' kidnapping and covered it up without a trace. I wondered what they would be willing to do to me for the billions in the bank. I treaded carefully, concealing my true feelings, unable to stand being around them. When my 18th birthday finally arrived, I gained access to the money. I had already decided on my gift to myself, hiring a private investigator to unearth the proof I needed to find my real parents and seek justice. I was patient, knowing that revenge would eventually be mine. A few weeks after hiring the investigator, he requested a secret meeting. Nervous yet hopeful, I approached his car parked in the shadows. He shared his findings with me, copies of wire transfers with forged signatures, evidence of phone calls to shady lawyers, and the original copy of my grandfather's will. which rightfully left all his money to my real mother. The detective uncovered another lead, a monthly payment to a storage facility in the next neighborhood. With this new information, we were ready to confront my fake parents and perhaps even locate my biological ones. Together, we headed to the police station, where I intended to speak with the detective. But upon arrival, I caught sight of my supposed parents. A sinking feeling washed over me. It became apparent that they might have bought off numerous police officers. Hopelessness threatened to overwhelm me. What options did I have? Then, a spark of an idea ignited within me. What if I took my story to the news? Surely, if people heard the truth, they'd rally to my aid. Before my supposed parents could spot me, I dashed back to the private investigator's car. We sped into town, armed with all the information we had gathered, and approached the local newspaper. There, we met Ruby, a kind and attentive young reporter. As we divulged the details I had uncovered over the years, supported by evidence, her astonishment mirrored my own. Ruby was eager to assist, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. She drafted the headline story on the spot, promising it would go to press within hours. Additionally, she contacted a friend who worked as a television news reporter, urging him to come to the station. As she relayed our tale to him, he too was stunned but ready to lend his support. Finally, I found allies, compassionate individuals willing to champion my cause and seek justice for my family and the opportunities stolen by those two psychopaths. With Nathan, the television news reporter, I sat down for the interview. Tears streamed down my face as I recounted my harrowing story. Finally, I felt the cathartic release of being heard. Everything was laid bare, out in the open. As the time approached for the news story to air and the newspaper to hit the stands, I was overcome with nausea. But Ruby and Nathan stood by me, offering their support every step of the way. They reassured me that justice would prevail, and for that, I was immensely grateful. The moment my story went live on TV, the floodgates opened with an overwhelming response. There was no way the authorities could ignore it now. Despite any attempts to bury the truth, one call confirmed the inevitable. Mom and Dad had been apprehended. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Could this be the start of my long-awaited happy ending? But there was one final task at hand. The private investigator and I drove downtown, tracing the address linked to the monthly payments on my supposed parents' credit card. We explained the situation to the owner of the storage facility, who led us down a dimly lit hallway to a door labeled 1. As he swung the door open and cast the beam of his flashlight inside, my heart skipped a beat. There they were, my real mom and dad, their faces etched with desperation. Without hesitation, I rushed to them, enveloping them in hugs and kisses. They looked weary and worn, yet relieved to see me. At last, we were reunited. They recounted how Henry, the butler, had clandestinely delivered food and water to them during their years of captivity. Confined to darkness and isolation, they endured unimaginable hardships. But now, we were poised to embrace our newfound family bond. With my supposed parents behind bars, control of the money fell into my hands. We sold their cold, imposing mansion and purchased a warm, welcoming family home together. Brought me solace knowing that I would never have to lay eyes on them again. Yet, as fate would have it, this morning brought a letter, stirring up memories of a past I thought I had left behind.